I think I found my favorite deck to use in Clash Royale. I've been kind of playing around with some new decks, some new ideas, and I built this one and I tried it out and I made a couple adjustments, and it is one of the most fun decks that I've played. It's pretty much an entirely Skeletons deck with clone, and you can clone pretty much any one of these cards. You can clone the Witch, you can clone the Evo Skeleton Barrel. You could clone the Skeleton King, but you can also use the ability and then clone all the skeletons that come up. Essentially, everything is clonable. And before, I just had an electro spirit in there for arrows, and then I found out that it was impossible to kill firecrackers or dart goblins or anything that was just sitting there in the back. So I put arrows in the deck, and this is just such a fun deck to play, just because there's so many gimmicky ways that you can get damage, so many different things you can clone, so many ways that you can catch your opponent off guard. And even though the deck is pretty heavy, you can build up some really powerful pushes and apply some really good pressure with this deck. And what I found is that it's nearly impossible to stop unless you have like the perfect counter in your hand. And it looks like we might be up against Expo in this first game. At least that's what it's looking like based on the Tesla and the skeletons and the log. So if we witch and if he, oh no, this isn't a, doesn't look like an Expo deck at least. Maybe this is, oh, this might be a minor, yeah, minor rocket deck. All right, this is going to be an interesting matchup. I haven't used this deck against a minor rocket player, but because he just used his Tesla, we'll go with that just so that it won't have to bypass any building. And you can see, even though we used a royal delivery on that, the barrel still got a few hundred damage, and it's a, I mean, it's a 3 elixir card, and so the skeleton barrel always seems to get damage. You have graveyard in there because you have a couple of tanks in the skeleton king and the giant skeleton. You could clone the graveyard if you need, like if they use their log on the skeleton barrel, you can, I mean, there's so many things that you can do, and so I've just found that it's a very fun deck to use. I don't know how it's going to go with this though, because the witch is not really going to get any value. It's just going to get rocketed every time. So we'll have to play it a little bit high. And even then I don't know how it's going to go. But we can go with kind of a barrel behind this. And because the witch is tanking, the skeleton barrel is still kind of get to the tower and get at least a little bit of drop damage. And we can kind of start building up a little bit of a push now. He's going to use his rocket there, which is good, because now we can go with the witch. And then if we go with a, I guess he does have log and cycle, so we're not going to clone it just yet. We're going to hopefully wait for him to use the log and then just kind of clone all the skeletons and the barrel. And you can see we still have skeleton barrels that are getting to the tower, and like how do you stop that? Like, it's just like I'm putting myself in my opponent's shoes. You know what, he BM'd us, so we'll laugh at him back. But it's just like, how do you stop this push? Like, he had log, he had rocket for the witch, he had Tesla, which was a fairly good answer for the barrels, but it's like, it's just such a dominant strategy, and I think you need to have the perfect answers in your hand, and then you need to play them perfectly as well. Like, you would need to have Valkyrie or Executioner or Witch or Wizard, or just all the above, because you have so much swarm card. You have so many swarm cards that it becomes just overwhelming. However, the opponent doesn't need to have that. Oh, I missed the tower there. But they don't need to have that if they have enough air. If they have enough air cards, because that is one department in which this deck lacks. It does not have a lot of air defense. The only cards that even target air are the witch and then arrows, which, you know, is completely fine if you're going against something like, you know, it's fine if you're going against, you know, a minion horde or something. You know, it's fine if you're going against something that flies but that doesn't have a lot of health, because then the witch can splash, the arrows can kill it. But it becomes a problem when you start encountering things like a balloon or a lava hound, because it has such high health and your witch is your only way of killing it. And so if they have enough air cards, right, if they have balloons, or if they have, electro dragons or baby dragons which have a decent bit of health, then that's when this deck becomes a little bit troublesome. I also haven't faced Mother Witch with it, so I think Mother Witch would probably be the bane of our existence. I think it would just get infinite value. So hopefully we do not face Mother Witch in this game. But we are going to be against Logbait, which is going to be just a little bit difficult, because this might be the variation with a rocket. And even if it's not, he has Inferno Tower for the tanks, and then just a bunch of very kind of splashable cheat cards in the Dark Goblin and the Princess. And I'm now realizing that I do not have a whole lot of answers for that, so we're going to have to just arrow that and tank the other lane, I think. Because I don't think that'll take our whole tower, but it pretty much will. Yeah, I think our only hope is going to be building up a massive push and cloning it all, just like we did last time. And we'll keep doing it on the left-hand side, I guess. We'll go with a barrel in the middle, just so that it hopefully tanks the Inferno Tower, and then we'll have to arrow the Princess, just because that's one of the main splash cards. And we're still not going to break through, so Logbait is, I'm now finding out, a difficult matchup. Hopefully we can win this next game, though. I think one of the other issues with this deck, and one of the ways that I'm thinking maybe we could solve it, is by maybe it would be best to swap out the Skeleton King with something like Bats to kind of compensate for the air defense, to have a little bit of a cheaper card, because our deck is also fairly heavy. Average cost is 4 elixir, so it is on the heavier side. So I've thought about maybe switching out Skeleton King for Bats, just so that the cycle's a little bit quicker. We have more air defense, and I don't really know that the Skeleton King is going to be that useful, just because we already have a tank in the Giant Skeleton to kind of tank for the Witch, tank for the Graveyard. So, maybe that would be best. Maybe if we lose this game, we'll swap out Skeleton King for Bats and see if it does any better. And this guy has Lightning, so this is another match where our Witch is not going to get a ton of value here. So he has Log and Lightning, and then Ice Spirit as well. And this is some kind of weird Hog variation. I think what we'll do is I think we'll just wait to see what he has. I think Clone is one of those wild cards where I think you only really play it once you find out what they have, once you find out what their small spells are, what their counters are to it. Please don't jump. Things always, Mega Knight always survives on half a health. I think he's still going to be able to lightning this, but hopefully we can get a bit of value out of it before he does. And we'll go with a Skeleton King just in case. And Wizard is going to be one of those. It is going to be one of those good cards that is going to get value against this push. But the Evo Witch is going to get a little bit of damage. I think we'll just have to arrow the Wizard so that it doesn't. I think it would splash our tower if it got any closer. We'll kind of go for a mini push now, and this might be something that we clone depending on what he does, and he's not really doing anything, so. And he's going to try to Mega Knight on everything, but it's not going to get everything. I don't know if he lagged out or if that was intentional, but think we can just kind of giant skeleton in the middle, and that should do a pretty good job of taking care of both lanes, and then we can just skeleton army for this. And we're looking good. As long as we can defend, arrows does enough. And we'll just I guess we'll play that just because the other lane is fine. And that is going to be another win with the Swarm deck. You can see he had Mega Knight, he had Wizard, he had a couple of answers, but it's just like that's kind of what I was saying, is even if you have a really good answer to it, you kind of have to play it perfectly. Like, you kind of have to keep your Wizard in hand. You have to play your Mega Knight at the right time. You have to, kind of, make sure that you're holding on to your Wizard, just because if you play it too early, then you're not going to have it in cycle for the next push. So it's just a very difficult push to stop. And this is going to be interesting because we're going against Dagger Duchess, which is going to be interesting to see. And Mega Knight again. It's going to be interesting to see how it should do a little bit better for us, because once the tanks kind of soak up the Dagger Duchess shots and it starts firing a lot slower, it's going to have a much more difficult time killing the skeletons. So it should be good for us. Once we just have to make sure things are getting tanked for, and then we'll probably go with a graveyard once the daggers are used up. We're going to be up against Golem, which is going to be an interesting matchup. I think we'll clone this just so that we can get the extra giant skeleton for some damage, and then we'll also get the extra bomb in there as well. So once it splashes, it should do a good job of clearing most everything out. Still going to take a ton of damage, but and he's probably just going to Mega Knight on top of the Witch. We'll play this a little bit high just because it's gonna get knocked back. And I guess we'll play a high skeleton army as well. Don't really know how to. Okay. Well, this is not a good. Okay, not a good situation that we're in. We're gonna have to get to our arrows as quickly as we can, and that push is pretty much all. You know what? The daggers are out, so we can. All right. Okay. Yeah, this is not a fun matchup. That kind of left a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth. So we'll play one more game, just because I would hate to end it on that note. So we'll play one more. And you know what? We'll try swapping Skeleton King out for Bats just to see if it does any better. We haven't really faced any heavy air decks yet. Like, we haven't really had an opponent where we've needed the Bats, so don't really know if it's going to provide much value, but it's going to be a little bit more air defense. It's going to be a little bit more versatility, and I don't know that we needed the Skeleton King. We didn't really use his ability all that much, and we had a giant skeleton for the tank anyway. So we'll see if this is any better of a deck. This is already looking like Royal Giant, which means he probably has Fireball. So we'll put this a little bit higher just so that he can't Fireball the tower as well. And he's going to go with a really early ability, so we'll just go with a Giant Skeleton here. And the Fisherman is going to pull it, but that should still do a pretty good job of everything. And, you know, maybe the bats will come in handy here. We'll clone them, get some extra bats and some Giant Skeleton Bombs. He has to waste his fire. You know what? Bats are actually a pretty good clonable card. Maybe they're already proving to be a little bit of a better fit in the deck. I'm thinking we do have Skeleton Army for the Royal Giant, but he just has too many answers for that, because I think he has Log and E-Spirit. So I don't really know. Don't know if our Skeleton Army is really going to do all that much against his Royal Giant. We'll try the same thing again because he used his E-Spirit, so we'll see what he has for this, and we'll clone it again just because that's a lot of bats, so we should at least be able to take out the Hunter. And I think we could just let that go. I think we'll take a hit. Okay, we're not going to take a hit. He's playing this really slow. I think most Royal Giant players I play usually play their Royal Giant by now. We'll just go with this to protect the Witch. And I would think he would go with his Royal Giant now. This is a little bit scary. We might have to go with a defensive barrel just to drop and deal some damage. And I'm now realizing that we don't have a great way of like killing his cards. Don't have a big spell. Don't have, so his hunters and his fishermen and whatnot are just kind of able to accumulate. But this should be a pretty good clone, and that should be his whole tower, because I think the bomb is on, and it is. So he never got to play his Royal Giant, but that's kind of a little bit of the dynamics of the clone deck, and it's just a fun deck to play. I think bats are a little bit of a better fit, and you can clone everything except for the arrows. There's some matchups, actually a lot of matchups, where you don't use Graveyard at all, or you don't use some of these cards a whole lot, but there's definitely a lot of good synergy between the cards, and it's just a deck that I found that I really enjoy playing. So I would definitely play this in Trophy Road and Ladder and whatnot, but I do not have the card levels to make it viable. I think my Giant Skeleton might be level 12, and I think a few of these other cards are as well. But hopefully you guys enjoy the broken clone strategy, and I will see you all in the next video.